Now, Iran's President Hassan Rouhani says regional nations can resolve their issues on their own, slamming U.S. and Israel's interference in their affairs.
In case of any disputes, regional countries must resolve their issues among themselves. They need to know that the use of weapons, U.S. or Israel, cannot bring about peace or stability. Peace can only be achieved through cooperation between the regional countries.
Rouhani was addressing reporters following a meeting with head of Iran's Judiciary, Sadeq Larijani, and Parliament Speaker Ali Larijani. The Iranian president then slammed some countries for what he called their adventurism in the region, saying that Washington and Tel Aviv support such moves. In apparent reference to Saudi Arabia, Rouhani criticized the kingdom for its interference in Lebanon's internal affairs. He said Lebanese people will overcome the plot as Iraqis and Syrians did. He also said the Islamic Republic can respond to any crisis by any means possible, but negotiations and diplomacy are always Tehran's top priority. And now we're joined out of Irvine by Mr. Pai, an independent economic researcher. Hello, Pai, and thanks for joining us back on the program. Now, your thoughts, please, on the Iranian president's statements.
I mean, it's indicative of Iran's maturity as far as being able to recognize threats against her. A couple of days ago in the United States here, we celebrated the annual Thanksgiving festival, the Thanksgiving holiday, which, for suburbanites, for most families, it's a excuse for gathering, eating turkey, and showing gratitude for what we have and what God has given us. For a lot of other folks, a lot of minorities out there, it is an annual reminder of the past slaughter of Native Americans that took place in order for Europeans to basically colonize this continent, North American continent. And so every year the protests against the roots of Thanksgiving get louder. So it's somewhat interesting that the same mindset is being employed right now by the United States, by Great Britain, and by Israel with regard to the wider Southwest Asian and North African regions, namely an environment that is basically ready for conquering in the same context. And natives, regardless of their origins, be they Arab, be they Muslim, be they Christian, be they Iranian, whatever their origins, are expendable in the eyes of these neo-colonists. And hence, threats to Iran are the most direct because Iran has been most effective with regard to protecting against wanton land grabs and regime change efforts, most immediately within Syria. So because Iran has been such a potent partner of Russia, of Syria, of Iraq, as well as of Lebanon with regard to defense, Iran is seen as the foremost obstacle to being able to achieve this wider, longer-term context of colonial regime, perennial regime change across the Middle East in order to achieve greater Israel, which is over a 100-year-old vision of having Israel expand ultimately to encompass the land between the Nile and the Euphrates rivers.
Interesting. Thank you much for joining us there, Mr. Pai Ian out of Irvine, California, independent economic researcher.